Let's talk about in this video Exhortation 5 from the book of Hebrews. This book, let's do a little bit of review before we get into Exhortation 5. The author, where to put it in the canon, the audience, when it was written, what is the author's purpose. I'll refer you back to the first video of Hebrews, the introduction, and where we do the first exhortation there to get an understanding of that. But know that Hebrews fits inside of the Petrine circle of letters. And that means it's written to people who are dispersed throughout the Roman Empire. They are 3 decades from Acts 2, from Pentecost. So all those people that came, they received the Spirit, they received miracles, and then they were dispersed out, and the apostles, as they got clarity from the Spirit, as the Spirit taught them, which was from Christ, then they wrote these letters to encourage them and to establish them in this newfound faith of theirs, which is how we are to use these letters to establish us, to establish the church and mature the church in Christ's plan, which is his church to be built as a family. So the book of Hebrews, let's look at the structure here, and then we'll go to the 5th exhortation. The book of Hebrews has 5, you can slice it up into 5 sections. These 5 sections you call exhortations, and you call them exhortations because that's the word the author uses as his purpose in 13:22 to 25. And each exhortation is split up into 2 parts. He explains it first, called an exposition, and then he has an exhortation, and exhortation is where he gives instructions or his complete ideas of what he wants to tell us. So these are the 5 of how it's sections, the 5 exhortations, how they progressively build. In this video, we'll talk about the 5th one, which starts out, exposition is chapter 11 through chapter 12:13, and then 12:14 to 29 is the final exhortation. So let's move through to exhortation 5. There's 1, there's 2, there's the 3rd one, there's the lengthy 4th one, the many different parts, the long explanation he has, exposition he uses in the beginning, and now we get to the 5th exhortation. So, exposition, the explanation he starts with first is 40 verses, and this is one that's often used. Some people, most people, if they're not familiar at all with the book of Hebrews, they might be familiar with Hebrews 11 because this is the list of all the characters of how they've been and who has been faithful. And it starts off by saying these people were sure of what they hoped for, and certain of what they could not see. And this is to give them, to build a conviction that gives stability, saying these things are invisible, yet they're true. This is the building conviction, stability in the audience that's receiving this letter. And ultimately, that's for us as well, that we would have confidence and stability in these teachings. Faith, and at the heart of the faith is God's unfolding plan. And what you see he does here in the first part, in these 40 verses in the exposition, is he's really saying the law is 4 through 29. That's all these characters, these leaders in the faith. They were sure of what they hoped for, but certain of what they could not yet see. It was invisible, but yet they knew it was true. And then he talks about some former prophets, and then he does a little bit where he just says, and the prophets, and more of the prophets. This is the later prophets. So the reason that's important to point out here is because Hebrews is richly rooted in the Old Testament, And the way he does his character list is how the Old Testament was divided up itself. The law, the prophets, and the writings. The law, the prophets, and sometimes Luke refers to it in Luke 24 as on the road to Emmaus, he says that Jesus unfolded for them the law, the prophets, and the Psalms. Well, the Psalms is the pinnacle book, the central book of all of the third part of the writings of that section of the Old Testament. And so sometimes you just refer to it as the pinnacle book, like you might refer to Paul's letters as Ephesians is the pinnacle book, is the core book. So it's important to see that things are integrated here, and that's how the New Testament author here is so richly steeped in the Old Testament understanding. Then he goes into his exhortation. His basic argument in 1 through 13 is this: in your struggle to finish this race and not turn back, you are going to have situation after situation after situation that's thrown at you. You're going to have opposition. You're going to have persecution. You're going to have difficult life situations. And you need to resist the sins that specifically entangle you and tempt you to not persevere. And they entangle you to turn back or to drop out of the race. And remember, this is written to dispersed Jews. The culture is against them, and their own Hebrew traditions and paradigms are pushing back against them, saying, just come back. And this is rooted in Proverbs 3. And he's saying, be disciplined, be trained by it, is in that Proverbs there. And Hebrews 12 specifically at the end of this first little part we're going through says, lift up your drooping hands, strengthen your weak knees, and make straight paths for your feet. So you can see he's trying to tell them to stay in the race, to stay, to not get entangled in all these situations, even though you're going to have thing after thing after thing that's going to come and be against you. He's saying, embrace the Christ new paradigm, 14 to 29 of 12. Do not turn back like whom? Like Esau, and forfeit your blessing that's coming for you. Instead, you must give thanks regardless of your situation and fully embrace this new covenant system and finish this race. And then he goes into 13, 1 through 17. He really begins to answer how to not have drooping hands, to strengthen your weak knees, to make straight paths for your feet. He goes into how you're supposed to do that. But first he says, we don't have a lasting city, but we are looking for that city that is to come. So he's hearkening, he's referencing a little bit this new Jerusalem. John talks about it in the Revelation. And while he's using the city metaphorically, it is clear that he refers to the blessing of that coming kingdom. John, about how New Jerusalem is going to sit at the center. John talks about how it's as wide as it is long as it is high. It's going to be an amazing city. And so here visually you have a person who's looking towards the future, towards that great city that Christ is going to call us all into. And in the meantime, we're to be building his city, his kingdom, his plan, which is his church as families. So part of lifting your drooping hands up and strengthening your weak knees and making straight paths for your feet is to let mutual love continue. Show hospitality to strangers. Remember those in prison. Let marriage be held in honor. Keep free from the love of money. Look to your leaders and imitate their faith. Do not be carried away by strange teachings. Endure abuse. Continually give thanks. Do not neglect doing good and share what you have. Obey your leaders. Submit to them. That's a repeat from what he said earlier. And pray specifically for your apostolic leaders. So, what clear directives he's giving in this exhortation. The basic argument is this: opposition is going to come, persecution is going to come. Let me zoom in a little bit more for you. Difficult situation is going to come, but that is going to complete how you build your mind. Those things help you build your mind, your complex state of mind. Again, referring back to 1 Peter 3:13 through 5:14, arm yourselves with the same intentions, he starts off in chapter 4 in that section with. And that is to build your mind. All of these letters in the Petrine Circle is to get us to build our mind individually and collectively so that we have the same priorities, the same way of thinking. It's a specific way of thinking that gives us that solidarity. And it's around prioritizing Christ's church as a family and building it and everyone playing their role. His prayer, the author of Hebrews, is that his prayer is that God makes them complete through opposition, through persecution, and through difficult life situations, that we would do his will. So that is, let me bring back to the middle here. That is the fifth exhortation, the final exhortation found in the book of Hebrews. And it talks about how we're to build our minds just like those who went before us. He splits them up in the law of the prophets and the latter prophets. And we're going to have persecution, opposition, but let that build the architecture of our minds. Don't have drooping hands. Raise your hands, lift your hands, strengthen your weak knees, make straight paths so that we all can endure and finish the race well, just like those before us. So the prayer is, may we make the invisible visible in Christ's church, as the author of Hebrews tells us here in his fifth exhortation.